breaking news, I should say, on the investigation into last week's deadly shooting rampage in Maine. CNN's Shimon Prejudice is joining us right now. He's got new details. What are you learning, Shimon?
The mass shooting of late could have been prevented. This news clip will tell it all. You've already seen it maybe, but now here it is again. This time with a song added. Here's the song, here's the clip. Put them together, that's a flip. Yeah, the mass shooting that happened that claimed 18 lives could have been prevented. It's a deception. He was visited. He was ascertained. But no one listened. Yeah, it could have been prevented if they'd only taken action and listened to what he was talking about, saying he wanted to go kill people. That's what it was all about. They could have prevented him from doing harm to 18 people when he was fully armed. Well, let's hear the clip. Let's hear what they say, even though we've already heard it again today. Let's hear it again now after the song. It'll make more meaning in this context. U.S. Army directed Maine gunmen should not have a weapon or handle ammunition after medical evaluation in July. No lie.
Well, you know, Wolf, this just gets worse and worse, and really just heartbreaking for the family members as new information comes out indicating that more and more this could have been prevented, that there were many and many warning signs, and now we're learning that in July that the military ordered that the shooter not have access to weapons or ammunition. And of course, all of this we're just learning, this is just coming in. We're also have learned that back in September, the police were at his house. There was a concern that the military had back then over his behavior and his mental health illness and what was going on in his life, that they called the local police in his neighborhood where he lives, and they asked them to go to his house and check on him, and they did. But they say they couldn't find him. At one point they thought he was home, but that's not entirely clear. And obviously that also is raising questions, because what exactly were police doing to find him, to sort of deal with this investigation? Today we got the chance to ask the governor of Maine, and get her reaction on all of this new reporting about the law enforcement, that they were looking for him, that there were some other questions about his mental health here. Take a listen to her reaction as I tried to ask her that question. We know that there is an alarming concern from the law enforcement community that activity and information here was ignored. And the simple answer is, why was that done, and are you concerned about that?
I think those kinds of facts are yet to be determined. You're making assumptions. I'm not willing to make those assumptions.
Yes. And Wolf, so now the investigation, of course, here continues. The governor says that they will at some point answer questions. Look, it's been several days. They've not done so. We've repeatedly gone to them to ask about this. And now, obviously, with this new information about the military and their issue with him possessing weapons, it's going to bring up a whole host of questions. And in the end, of course, Wolf, for the families, just hearing this new information, other information that we've reported on, certainly is going to be so troubling and just really disappointing, and probably something really hard for them to grapple with right now.
Horrible situation. All right, Shimon, thank you very much. Shimon Prejudice in Maine for us. Coming up, you're going to hear the hopes and fears of the relatives of two Israelis who've been held hostage by Hamas for weeks now. Stay with us. You're in the situation.
And here's another song that I do. A judge for the athletics in Bahrain or something like that. A judge or some
inside of Gaza, vowing to continue adding troops inside there. Over the last several hours, Wolf, we have been hearing a very intense barrage of artillery fire being directed at the Gaza Strip. Earlier today, we were positioned in Sderot, overlooking Israeli operations inside of Gaza, and what we were able to see is ongoing activity involving tanks in the Gaza Strip, and as well as ongoing artillery fire being directed at Gaza, machine gun fire indicating ongoing battles between Hamas militants and Israeli troops inside of Gaza. Our photojournalist Matthias Sam was also able to get some imagery of Beit Hanun, which is the northeasternmost city in Gaza, to see the aftermath of some of that bombardment and those operations that have been carried out by Israeli troops in northern Gaza. You can see some of these buildings, shells of themselves, really just the foundation remaining there. All of this as we are learning now of this operation that Sarah was just talking about to free one of those Israeli hostages. The Israeli Prime Minister tonight making clear that he believes this ground operation is only strengthening Israel's hand to get those hostages released.
Our common assessment of all of the not only the cabinet members, but also all the security forces and the military, is that the ground action actually creates the possibility, not the certainty, but the possibility of getting our hostages out. Because Hamas will not do it unless they're under pressure. They simply will not do it. They only do it under pressure. This creates pressure.
And in line with that, the Israeli Prime Minister also vowing not to agree to a ceasefire, which more and more nations around the world are beginning to call for. The Israeli Prime Minister saying that the United States would not have moved to a ceasefire after the Pearl Harbor attacks or after the 9/11 attacks on the United States. He said that a ceasefire at this point would amount to a surrender to Hamas. Wolf?
Jeremy Diamond in Ashkelon for us, not far from Gaza. Thank you very much. Just ahead, we're going to have much more news from CNN's reporters live on the ground here in Israel. And I'll speak with a key senior advisor to the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, after he denounced calls for a ceasefire with Hamas.
If you have chronic kidney, then withdrawals, perhaps trying to cut off Gaza City and work on the infrastructure of Hamas there. But pressures will grow, and what Israel thinks may be many week, many month campaign, they just might not have that time. And at a certain point in time, the level of Palestinian civilian casualties in Gaza will be too high for Israel's allies to continue backing it. This is what I see down the road. I don't know when that point is going to be, though.
David Schenker, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday today.
Thank you.
Now, Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says out of the nearly 8,500 Palestinians killed since the war started, nearly 3,500 were children, and hospitals across Gaza are inundated with casualties. This is the story of one family in southern Gaza, filmed by freelance journalist Mahmoud Bassam. Our special correspondent Fergal Key sent this report from Jerusalem.
They were living here in Rafah when the war came. The rescuers found them in the rubble and rushed 18-month-old Julia to Al-Najjar Hospital. It is hard to imagine consolation in this place until this moment, when her sister learns little Julia has survived. My sister, my beloved, says Jory, aged 5. This is my sister, she tells the nurses. The girl's physical wounds can be treated. But how is it possible to heal the trauma of being a child in such a war? Their dad Bilal has a minor head wound and consoles the girl's uncle Mohammed, for he and wife Lena have lost their 6-month-old daughter, Sila. Witnesses to the grief of adults, the baby's sister Fatima, her brother Suleiman, and her cousins, the two sisters Julia and Juri. 1 hour ago, I was playing with her, says Mohammed. Go to any hospital in Gaza and the flow of casualties is relentless. Those who can be treated and those who join the growing list of the dead. Many of them refugees who sought shelter in crowded buildings after being forced to flee their own homes.
So when this airport just strike the building, at least it's 20 or 30 person will kill.
The sisters will sleep in another crowded building tonight. There is no safety. Fergal Keane, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Now, Turkey has strongly condemned what it said was an Israeli airstrike on Gaza's Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital. In a statement, the Turkish Foreign Ministry said it is inexplicable for such an attack to take place given all the necessary information, including the coordinates of the institution in question, which is the only cancer hospital in Gaza, was shared with Israeli authorities in advance. They added that attacks and the blockade on Gaza were clear violations of international law. This video, verified by the BBC, shows the hospital under fire and engulfed in smoke. The Israeli Defense Forces have not responded to Turkey's comments. Dr. Medat Abbas, the Health Ministry's director, sent through some video from inside a Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital in southern Gaza, and he told us how patients were coping.
This video is taken from the Turkish hospital, which is allocated to treat cancer patients in Gaza Strip. This is the only hospital to treat cancer patients. In fact, the bombardment had been around this hospital during all last night. The patients were inside the hospital were horrified, the health staff, and many damage have happened in the hospital, which is called partial damage, destroying windows and furniture of the hospital. In fact, those patients have got nowhere to go. They're supposed to take their chemotherapy inside this, and they are having a follow-up of their very difficult conditions. If they get outside this hospital, they will certainly die. That's the situation in the Turkish hospital.
Meanwhile, 60 people were arrested after large groups stormed an airport in Dagestan in southern Russia looking for Israeli citizens. Video on social media showed a crowd running through the airport, some shouting anti-Semitic slogans. Israel has urged Russia to protect Jews. Here's our Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg.
Outside Makhachkala Airport, the mob was determined to break in. They brought with them Palestinian flags and hatred of Jews. Once inside, they ran riot through the terminal building, searching for passengers from Israel, furious that a flight from Tel Aviv was expected here. It had all the hallmarks of an anti-Jewish pogrom in the mainly Muslim Russian Republic of Dagestan. They cried in Arabic, "God is greatest," and chanted anti-Semitic slogans. As they pushed their way through the airport, there was no resistance. Terrified staff could do little to stop this. Back outside, disembarking passengers were told to reboard immediately for their own safety as the mob spilled onto the runway. The Russian authorities blamed the violence on external forces.
Массовые беспорядки, произошедшие 29
The mass riots that occurred in Dagestan are the result of a planned external provocation aimed at undermining harmony among Russians.
Уважаемые друзья, добрый день.
Just a few days ago, President Putin had met with Russian religious leaders to tell them that interfaith harmony was the basis of Russian statehood. There were other anti-Semitic protests in Dagestan at the weekend. A crowd gathered outside a hotel where a Jewish guest was believed to have checked in. They threw stones at the windows and a sign was hung on the door. It read, "Entrance strictly forbidden to Israeli citizens, to Jews." Steve Rosenberg, BBC News.
Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
For me, Macau is such a vibrant city. There's a blend of worlds coming together in harmony. As an artist, Macau has inspired me in every aspect. It has a very profound cultural background. I love that Macau brings international artists to visit. I feel there is so much we can learn from each other and push boundaries and create something the world has never seen.
Amidst the world slowdown, we stand firm as home to a fifth of global nickel reserves. Indonesia is poised to lead the global EV battery industry. We adeptly manage our abundant resources and play a vital role in solar energy harnessing, offering 75% of global carbon credit potential, committed to environmental protection, enhancing investment climate through digital licensing. Indonesia, your better tomorrow.
You're live with BBC News. Now, a BBC investigation has found that some school teachers in Kenya are beating their students on a daily basis, and the consequences can be deadly. Africa Eye's Tom Odula, whose own school years were marked by brutal beatings at the hands of teachers, went on a journey to investigate the extent of the problem. And a warning, some viewers may find details of this report upsetting.
Reports of teachers beating their students in Kenyan schools are on the rise. In some cases, children have died.
This is a sports certificate.
She was an athlete.
The autopsy report revealed that she had severe head injury, blunt force trauma. So somebody hit her to cause that kind of an injury leading to her death.
Martha's daughter Abby died in 2019. Her boarding school said she died in her sleep, but witnesses say she was beaten by the deputy principal. Even with the autopsy results, it took several years to get the case properly investigated.
They were trying to force me to believe that my child fell from a bed, and that's why she died.
In Kenya, corporal punishment is an offense punishable under the Prevention of Torture Act. Yet, according to media reports, more than 20 children have died at the hands of their teachers in the last 5 years alone. I spoke to 2 other families whose children were severely beaten at school. This is 16-year-old Safin. Do you remember what happened the day you got injured?
We set exams and I failed. That's why he beat us. He beat me on my waist and I got injured.
Safin had to be taken to hospital. The teacher, who denies the accusations, was transferred to another school. Safin's family say they turned to the independent body responsible for teachers, the Teacher Service Commission, but there was no support. On condition of anonymity, a source from the commission told me reports of the most severe school beatings have quadrupled in the last 3 years, from 7 to 29.
It is becoming a crisis because we feel it's going out of hand now. Cases of children being injured and maimed, even death.
The TSC source told me rogue teachers are protected at every level of Kenyan society, with cases swept under the carpet.
By the time the case reaches us, it is already totally diluted. So much evidence has been corrupted.
We put these claims to the TSC, but they did not respond. After 4 years of tireless campaigning by Martha, in spring this year, what could be the first ever prosecution of its kind, the school official accused of killing Abby facing trial for murder. She denies the charge, saying she wasn't at school when the incident happened. In the meantime, Martha has vowed to keep fighting until justice is served for her daughter. Tom Odula, BBC News.
Now, the former president of the Spanish Football Federation, Luis Rubiales, has been banned from the sport for 3 years. The world governing body, FIFA, said Mr. Rubiales breached its disciplinary code when he kissed Spanish player Jenny Hermoso on the lips after her team won the World Cup in August. She denied his claim that it was consensual. Mr. Rubiales said he will appeal and go to the last resort to get justice. Megan Owen has more on what led up to this ban.
Let's remind ourselves of that moment that sparked the outcry. Here we see Luis Rubiales kissing Spanish forward Jenny Hermoso. This was a moment that was broadcast globally and ultimately ended up overshadowing the Spanish Women's World Cup win. Now, shortly after this incident, Jenny Hermoso released a statement saying, "At no time did I consent to the kiss he gave me." She also filed a legal complaint. Now, this was disputed by Rubiales, who said that the kiss was mutual and consensual, but he was provisionally suspended by FIFA. Now, in September, he resigned his position as the Spanish FA president, saying, "It's evident that I will not be able to return to my position. Insisting on waiting and holding on is not going to contribute to anything positive." And less than a month after celebrating his team's win, he ended up in court. He was given a restraining order and was told not to approach Hermoso, but he denies the allegations of sexual assault and coercion. We've now found out that FIFA have banned him from all football-related activity for 3 years due to a breach in Article 13. That's offensive behaviour and violations of the principles of fair play. They have said, though, that this is subject to appeal, and this is something that Rubiales has already said that he's going to pursue.
And before we go, let's remind you of some major developments in the conflict between Israel and Gaza, because the Israeli military has said that a soldier, a hostage, has been freed who was kidnapped by Hamas on the 7th of October. She is Private Ori Megadish, and she's said to be doing well and has been reunited with her family, but also Hamas has released a video of 3 hostages. Of course, more than 230 are still believed to be trapped in Gaza, and the video was released, which Mr. Netanyahu has described as cruel psychological propaganda. That is it for the program. Thank you so much for watching.
Hold it!
Imagine a world with no drama.
I haven't signed Joey's card yet.
Ordering promotional products guaranteed to create memorable moments is an easy mission at 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
Amidst the world slowdown, we stand firm as home to a fifth of global nickel reserves. Indonesia is poised to lead the global EV battery industry. We adeptly manage our abundant resources and play a vital role in solar energy harnessing, offering 75% of global carbon credit potential, committed to environmental protection, enhancing investment climate through digital licensing. Indonesia, your better tomorrow.
For me, Macau is such a vibrant city. There's a blend of worlds coming together in harmony. As an artist, Macau has inspired me in every aspect. It has a very profound cultural background. I love that Macau brings international artists to visit. I feel there is so much we can learn from each other and push boundaries and create something the world has never seen.
Let's hope we have none of those things today, right? Almost all the pine honey in the world comes from this little corner of Turkey.
In Gaza is limited by what we can see as journalists from the outside and what the IDF tells us. Our best sense is that we know there's a combination of Israeli armor, tanks, armored personnel carriers, infantry, engineers. They're on the ground. They've been engaging. Their goal is to move closer to Gaza City, where they know there is a greater Hamas presence. We know they're at least a couple of miles into Gaza and making progress from more than one direction, the north and the east. We also know the IDF saying today that they've killed some dozens of Hamas fighters. Of course, the trouble is we know that Hamas fighters number in the many thousands in Gaza. It gives you a sense that this is very much a ground operation in its early stages in Gaza. Here in the north, the exchange of fire across the border between Israel and Lebanon, but also between Israel and Syria and Iranian-backed fighters on either side. You've got Hezbollah in Lebanon, other fighters in Syria. It's more visible to us. We've been up to some of these communities. We're seeing artillery fire going back and forth, rocket fire, sniper fire, as well as attempts to break through the barriers there by Hezbollah and other fighters, some of whom have broken through, though they have been immediately met by IDF forces. Of course, the concern up here, Wolf, is that the numbers of those attacks and the numbers of the fighters increases. We know that Hezbollah has many more militants arrayed on the other side at its disposal. Do they get an order to come in greater numbers? We don't know yet, but we know that the IDF, as well as residents up here, watching it very closely. And one measure of their fear, Wolf, when we go to those communities along the border, most of them are deserted, either under mandatory evacuation or volunteer evacuation, because they're concerned about an escalation, another front, in effect, in the north. Wolf?
Yeah, it's very, very depressing. You go up there and so many people, communities, have totally been evacuated. Jim Shudo reporting for us from northern Israel. Thank you. As the tensions boil over here in the Middle East, we're also seeing very disturbing scenes of anti-Semitic violence all across the world. CNN's Brian Todd has our report.
An anti-Semitic riot at an airport in the southern Russian Republic of Dagestan. A violent mob stormed the terminal after a flight from Tel Aviv landed there on Sunday. Some rioters chanted Allahu Akbar, waved a Palestinian flag. Once inside the terminal, many of them burst into hallways, rushed through checkpoints, seemingly looking for people. A vehicle was violently shaken. A State Department spokesman likens this to the organized violent attacks on Jews in Russia in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Like a pogrom to me. We call on Russian authorities to publicly condemn these violent protests.
Political and religious leaders in Dagestan did condemn the violence, and the founder of the free speech platform Telegram said Telegram accounts that incited the violence in Dagestan will be banned from the platform. But the threat is hardly isolated. At Cornell University in upstate New York, police are investigating a series of anti-Semitic threats made recently against the school's Jewish community. It wasn't just this graffiti on campus saying, quote, Israel is fascist. The school's newspaper says there were online posts threatening to shoot Jewish students, to shoot up their kosher dining hall, and encouraging others to harm Jews. Some of the usernames chosen by those making threats included the word Hamas.
Jewish students on campus right now are unbelievably terrified for their lives. I never would have expected this to happen on my own campus, to happen in my own home.
Governor Kathy Hochul says state police are ramping up security on the Cornell campus.
We will not tolerate threats or hatred or anti-Semitism or any kind of hatred that makes people feel vulnerable.
At Tulane University recently, 3 students were assaulted during a rally. It's part of an alarming spike in anti-Semitic incidents throughout the U.S., tracked by the Anti-Defamation League since the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel and Israel's response in Gaza.
Already in the United States, anti-Semitic incidents before October the 7th were at the highest point ADL had ever tracked in 45 years of doing this work. And in the last 3 weeks, numbers are up an additional 400%.
One expert on extremism says during this war, many people on both sides are lumping their anger against the Israeli government or Hamas with unfounded anger against the Jewish and Muslim communities, and much of that is fueled by inaccurate information online.
Social media like chat rooms and forums and gaming rooms are really a toxic mess of hate right now, and there's so much misinformation being fueled about this war.
President Biden told reporters today that he's very concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism, and the White House has announced new actions it's taking to combat incidents on college campuses in the U.S. The Biden administration recruiting officials with the Departments of Homeland Security, Justice, and the Education Department to coordinate the response with law enforcement officials at the colleges. Wolf?
Very disturbing indeed. Brian Todd reporting for us. Thank you, Brian. Coming up, my very moving conversations with the loved ones of two hostages held by Hamas, a beloved grandmother and a young musician. Their stories and their heartache, that's ahead. But up next, should Donald Trump be disqualified from being president again after his actions on January 6th? A trial just got underway in Colorado on that high-stakes question.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed? Because only the Sleep Number Climate 360 smart bed lets you each sleep up to 13 degrees cooler or warmer on either side, while you both sleep at your ideal level of firmness, comfort, and support, your Sleep Number setting. And now our all-new next-gen smart beds have temperature benefits, so you sleep better night after night. And now, save up to $500 on our new Sleep Number smart beds. Sleep next level. Shop for a limited time, only at Sleep Number.
I'm Sholay, and I lost 75 pounds with Golo. I went from a size 20 to a size 6. Before Golo, nothing seemed to work. I was exercising for over an hour every day. It was really discouraging. But Golo is so easy, the weight just falls off.
At Long John Silver's, feed your sea tooth with efficient shrimp platter. 2 heavyweights of the high seas dipped in our signature batter and fried to golden perfection. Pair your platter with Wisconsin white cheddar cheese bites and ride a wave of melty goodness. Order ahead at longjohnsilvers.com. Fish yeah!
She found it. The feeling of finding the psoriasis treatment she's been looking for. Sotyktu is the first of its kind once daily pill for moderate to severe plaque psoriasis for the chance at clear or almost clear skin. It's like the feeling of finding that outfit psoriasis tried to hide from you, or finding your swimsuit is ready for prime time. Dad, once daily Sotyktu is proven to get more people clearer skin than the leading pill. Don't take if you're allergic to Sotyktu. Serious reactions can occur. Sotyktu can lower your ability to fight infections, including TB. Serious infections, cancers including lymphoma, muscle problems, and changes in certain labs have occurred. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, liver or kidney problems, high triglycerides, or had a vaccine or plan to. Sotyktu is a TYK2 inhibitor. TYK2 is part of the JAK family. It's not known if Sotyktu has the same risks as JAK inhibitors. Find what plaque psoriasis has been hiding. Ask your dermatologist about Sotyktu for clearer skin. So clearly you. Sotyktu.
ADT Self-Setup, featuring Google Nest products. Now you can easily install your system that's backed by ADT's 24/7 monitoring with no long-term contracts.
Have fun.
So you have a home with no worries. Brought to you by ADT.
This is your season to smile with new dentures from Aspen Dental. To raise a toast and gather together. To wrap up the fun and round up the gang. To help get you ready, your Aspen Dental Denture team is celebrating 25 years of affordable care with an epic anniversary savings event. Don't miss enjoying a moment with fast repairs in our on-site labs and 20% off your custom dentures. Plus, we have a denture money-back guarantee, so you can smile with confidence. Aspen Dental. Book today.
Everybody's talking about berberine, and it really does work. So you need to try Doctor's Preferred Gluco Gold. This all-in-one formula contains the full research dose of berberine that helps keep your blood sugar in the normal range, plus 3 other powerful ingredients.
It's made a great difference in my life.
Gluco Gold is flying off shelves nationwide. But now's your chance to try a complimentary bottle by texting BUSY to 231231.
It keeps my sugar levels right where I want it.
Gluco Gold will help you maintain healthy blood sugar levels, while it supports healthy cholesterol and insulin sensitivity guaranteed. Take the first step to making sure your next checkup is better than your last, and hearing those 3 wonderful words: blood sugar normal. You can only get your complimentary bottle by texting BUSY to 231231. Plus, text right now and you'll receive a bottle of vitamin D3 immune support absolutely free.
Doctors Preferred. Better science, better results.
I'm Jim Sciutto in northern Israel, and this is CNN.
We're live in Tel Aviv with our breaking news coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. We'll have much more on that. That's coming up just ahead. Right now, though, a truly historic long-shot court case is underway to determine if Donald Trump is disqualified from being president of the United States again, based on an insurrectionist ban in the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. CNN senior justice correspondent Evan Perez is following the trial for us in Colorado. Evan, there hasn't ever been a case like this in U.S. history, I take it. Walk us through what unfolded in court today and the major questions being raised.
That's right. Well, this is an extraordinary case. There are a number of these lawsuits around the country, but this is the first one really that has gone to trial. And we heard today in court from Representative Eric Swalwell, as well as a couple of Capitol police officers who described the darkness of that day, January 6th, the insurrectionist attack on the U.S. Capitol. And the question that is on the table today at the court is whether the former president's inspiration, right, incitement of that attack on the Capitol, whether that disqualifies him from being on the ballot in Colorado. And that's what the group of Colorado voters are arguing in this case. I'll read you just a part of the 14th Amendment, which was ratified after the Civil War, that they say disqualifies the former president. They say no. It says no person shall hold any office who, having previously taken an oath to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. This is obviously a long shot case, Wolf. We know that however this trial turns out, it is going to get appealed. The former president's lawyers in court today say that this is an undemocratic effort. They say that voters should get a chance to decide whether Donald Trump gets a chance at the White House once more. We know, Wolf, that this is a trial that's going to go all week. And as I pointed out, no matter how it goes, we expect that this is going to end up in the appeals court and possibly in the Supreme Court, Wolf.
We will find out sooner rather than later. Evan Perez, thank you very much. We're also following news right now, breaking news I should say, on the investigation into last week's deadly shooting rampage in Maine. CNN's Shimon Prokupecz is joining us right now. He's got new details. What are you learning, Shimon?
Well, you know, Wolf, this just gets worse and worse, and really just heartbreaking for the family members as new information comes out indicating that more and more this could have been prevented, that there were many and many warning signs, and now we're learning that in July that the military ordered that the shooter not have access to weapons or ammunition. And of course, all of this we're just learning, this is just coming in. We're also have learned that back in September, the police were at his house. There was a concern that the military had back then over his behavior and his mental health illness and what was going on in his life, that they called the local police in his neighborhood where he lives, and they asked them to go to his house and check on him, and they did. But they say they couldn't find him. At one point they thought he was home, but that's not entirely clear. And obviously that also is raising questions, because what exactly were police doing to find him, to sort of deal with this investigation? Today we got the chance to ask the governor of Maine, and get her reaction on all of this new reporting about the law enforcement that they were looking for him, that there were some other questions about his mental health here. Take a listen to her reaction as I tried to ask her that question.
We know that there is an alarming concern from the law enforcement community that activity and information here was ignored. And the simple answer is, why was that done, and are you concerned about that?
I think those kinds of facts are yet to be determined. You're making assumptions. I'm not willing to make those assumptions.
Yes. And so now the investigation, of course, here continues. She says, the governor says, that they will at some point answer questions. Look, it's been several days. They've not done so. We've repeatedly gone to them to ask about this. And now, obviously, with this new information about the military and their issue with him possessing weapons, it's going to bring up a whole host of questions. And in the end, of course, well, for the families, just hearing this new information, other information that we've reported on, certainly is going to be so troubling and just really disappointing, and probably something really hard for them to grapple with right now.
Horrible situation. All right, Shimon, thank you very much. Shimon Prepikaz in Maine for us. Coming up, we're going to hear the hopes and fears of the relatives of 2 Israelis who've been held hostage by Hamas for weeks now. Stay with us. You're in the situation.
A judge for the Athletics in Bahrain or something like that. The judge or some official or something. The guy who kissed the girl of a soccer team and said it was consensual. Well, it seems it was not. It was not. It was not. Now he's been banned from all future soccer matches. He's no longer going to be the position he had. Well, it's all explained in this video when you re-watch it. I'm telling you about this long after. But it's on this video. It's on the show. You can see it firsthand, yeah? I'm a bad reflector. I'm a bad reflection. Got a brain injury too. But I'm doing my best. At least I passed the test. I can speak about it, though I may not have the best details. Except that he tried to kiss her, said it was consensual when it wasn't. He basically molested her by kissing her against her will. Now he's going to pay the price. Pay the price. And now another song. This was just spoken about recently. Well, hand to mouth. Like I said, I got a brain injury. Can I even remember what it was about? Well, it was on the tip of my mind, and then it left me. Has it left me for good, or can I still call it and remember it? They were just talking and speaking about it. Well, I got to describe that one thing. I may have forgotten about the other. What a shame. Well, there's one other thing I remember in this video. It was talking about the mob in Russia after Jewish people, Jewish refugees or whatever they thought that they were. It was uncalled for due to prejudice and bias and a lynch mob mentality. What a shame. What a shame. I'm waiting to see if I can remember what I was hoping to sing another song about. Let's see if it comes. I'll do a little instrumental for a moment. tell you what. There's one thing I'll do. When I get home from work, when I leave here now, when I come back, I'll review the video myself. See what was at the end that I wanted to make a song about. And even though it'll be after the fact, I'll make the song. I'll find out what it was about. And then I'll join it. Join it to this video. So I've made it after all. How about that? If I can remember to do that. Let's hope I can.
Breaking news, I should say, on the investigation into last week's deadly shooting rampage in Maine. CNN's Shimon Prejudice is joining us right now. He's got new details. What are you learning, Shimon?
The mass shooting of late could have been prevented. This news clip will tell it all. You've already seen it maybe, but now here it is again. This time with a song added. Here's the song. Here's the clip. Put them together. That's a flip. Yeah, the mass shooting that happened that claimed 18 lives could have been prevented. It's a deception. He was visited. He was ascertained. But no one listened. Yeah, it could have been prevented if they'd only taken action and listened to what he was talking about. Saying he wanted to go kill people. That's what it was all about. They could have prevented him from doing harm to 18 people when he was fully armed. Well, let's hear the clip. Let's hear what they say, even though we've already heard it again today. Let's hear it again now, after the song. It'll make more meaning in this context. U.S. Army directed Maine gunmen should not have a weapon or handle ammunition after medical evaluation in July. No lie.
Well, you know, Wolf, this just gets worse and worse, and really just heartbreaking for the family members as new information comes out indicating that more and more this could have been prevented, that there were many and many warning signs, and now we're learning that in July that the military ordered that the shooter not have access to weapons or ammunition. And of course, all of this we're just learning, this is just coming in. We're also have learned that back in September, the police were at his house. There was a concern that the military had back then over his behavior and his mental health illness and what was going on in his life, that they called the local police in his neighborhood where he lives, and they asked them to go to his house and check on him, and they did. But they say they couldn't find him. At one point they thought he was home, but that's not entirely clear. And obviously that also is raising questions, because what exactly were police doing to find him, to sort of deal with this investigation? Today we got the chance to ask the governor of Maine, and get her reaction on all of this new reporting about the law enforcement, that they were looking for him, that there were some other questions about his mental health here. Take a listen to her reaction as I tried to ask her that question. We know that there is an alarming concern from the law enforcement community that activity and information here was ignored. And the simple answer is, why was that done, and are you concerned about that?
I think those kinds of facts are yet to be determined. You're making assumptions. I'm not going to make those assumptions.
Yes. And Wolf, so now the investigation, of course, here continues. She says, the governor says, that they will at some point answer questions. Look, it's been several days. They've not done so. We've repeatedly gone to them to ask about this. And now, obviously, with this new information about the military and their issue with him possessing weapons, it's going to bring up a whole host of questions. And in the end, of course, well, for the families, just hearing this new information, other information that we've reported on, certainly is going to be so troubling and just really disappointing, and probably something really hard for them to grapple with right now.
Horrible situation. All right, Shimon, thank you very much. Shimon Prokopez in Maine for us. Coming up, you're going to hear the hopes and fears of the relatives of 2 Israelis who've been held hostage by Hamas for weeks now. Stay with us. You're in the situation.
And here's another song that I do. A judge for the athletics in Bahrain or something like that. The judge or